Last time we have seen the list created by Robbins. Here you see it recreated here on the side, and on the other side you see the other lists created by other people. This one is the Nussbaum's list, and well, she also talk on detail on the items of the list or needs that are mentioned on the list, and discuss this a little bit, so it can be a framework also that could be created further to develop ways to measure the items on the list. By the way, they can be measured or they can be also tested qualitatively in especially smaller type of societies, like I don't know, in a school you might test, or in an institution you might test how much these needs are met by qualitative methods, like direct speaking with the people. But in larger sense, you might need numerical methods, but still, I mean, at least from sample of people, you might still make some qualitative investigation to know what to look at. Maybe, I don't know. And basically, these are two other lists you can look up. Some of them actually. This one goes all the way to the 80s. And unlike the Nussbaum, actually, the Robbins, actually, Nussbaum is a person who argues such lists are necessary and beneficial. And here is her argument, actually. I mean, I want to concentrate specifically this argument, not her list specifically. Well, for her, it is necessary to have a common standard, which means we should be able to decide what are necessary needs and capabilities that we also have to in order to meet those needs. We should be able to set some universal standards to test the well-being of the people and where the different societies at a certain point are. That kind of a test is important to create a sufficient data and data we need, and we may use this data to make us better. Of course, not only a single she doesn't talk on only a single number, but also a kind of data collection or information collection, at least, which will give us information on where we are good at and where we are not good at. For example, we might be good at life, but we might not be good at, for example, emotional expressions. I mean, somehow able to express our emotions could be one of our needs, and currently in society, that need might not be met in a satisfactory way. I don't know. Or we might not be able to control our environment, the environment where we live. We might be dictated to live in a certain environment. Or our control might be limited, relatively limited. So, she mentions certain critiques to her approach. One is argument of culture, arguments from good of diversity, and arguments from paternalism. All three are actually in some ways similar. Culture basically states that different cultures have different elements. So basically, if in a culture there are certain, let's say, traditions which, well, for example, traditions between wife and husband, uh, or children and parents, or even elders and the other people in society, social organization, which we think wrong because it violates, it decreases capabilities according to the way we measure. Uh, that might be something wrong, because different cultures have different elements, and we should not judge that culture from as an outsider, and think that our culture is better than their culture. Um, Goods of diversity is similarly. I mean, different societies might have different um, uh, structure, and that diversity is something good. And basically, in the name of making increasing, increasing capability of the people, which is also defined by us, basically, uh, defined by, I mean, I'm not a Western, Western. I'm not coming from Western society, but let's say defined by Western societies is not something uh, that should be done. I mean, instead of making everything to follow a certain standard, diversity should be promoted according to this. And diversity might mean every society might have different, different type of setting. And we should not destroy this setting using capability in the name of increasing capabilities, meeting the people's needs in society in a better way. And arguments from paternalism is again from the Western point of view. We are being paternalist and we decide what is best for that society, and we are forcing that on that society. To all of this, Nussbaum's main approach is, first, culture is something that is change, that is able to change. Um, Slavery was once part of the Western culture, certainly American culture. American culture, especially in the southern areas, was very much developed with slavery, and this even in the south of the United States, there is much disrespect to elderly concept comes from the slavery, because slaves have to respect their elders, and that code of respect between slave and master also has been followed uh, by the children and the father, for example. Um, but when a certain element of the society is harmful for the members of the society, that cultural element can change. And in that sense, also diversity is something good, but not the type of diversity that is harmful for the people. We should be able to detect what is harming the people of a country or of a place. And we should be able to, warn them and show them actually a certain tradition or certain way they are performing things is harmful for themselves, their children, and encourage them to change it if that thing is really harmful as far as we can see. Well, we might be that we the way we observe it might be wrong actually. What we see as harmful might not be that way. That's always a possibility, but harmful practices should not be protected in the name of diversity. That's one thing certainly, or in the name of culture. Again, both arguments come to the same thing. And arguments for paternalism is basically, um, here I could say directly mentioning or forcing people to change their ways might be something wrong, and basically maybe it might be important to um, make or encourage the people within the society to change their ways. And in that sense, also a capability approach that is defined by within the Western universities might not be something beneficial, but it might be, if it will be universal, it should be maybe um, developed with the contribution of everyone, and everyone in that sense around the world should be able to contribute it, and at least if it is not that way today, it should be transformed to that way. But she also, Nussbaum also talks that paternalism already exists in the societies, and certain people say, claim what is right and what is wrong for, other members of the society. So in that sense, paternalism already exists, and in the in case that we cannot, before we can at least build a democratic platform for the whole world, at least we should be able to say what is right and what is wrong, as far as we can see, or what is beneficial or what is harmful, basically, as far as we can see in a society. So this is basically what Nussbaum stated. Now we can fall back to the original article of the Amartya Sen now. And in case of Amartya Sen, actually, Amartya Sen is just the very beginning of this approach, and so his question has been a basic question, and the basic question is this: uh, at the, at one on the one hand, you might think of the increase in wealth level, increasing in the GDP production level of the society. Society becomes richer on average. On the other hand, the society has a better life standards, basically, to which Amartya Sen focus on a specific one, developing the freedoms that allow people to live better. He doesn't talk capabilities, he talks on freedoms. Later, the freedoms have been talked to capabilities. But Amartya Sen's freedoms are pretty much individual, not like freedom for whole society, rather than freedom to do something, for example. And that concept was also used by United States in the Second World War. Roosevelt has prepared, the president of the United States at that time, Roosevelt, has created propaganda sheets in which he wrote why we fought to fight the war, and he claimed for the four freedoms, which he named freedom from fear, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, and freedom from want, freedom from being poor, basically. So Amartya Sen asks, do we really need high income to develop those freedoms? And does that high income necessarily guarantees us those freedoms? His answer is mixed. He doesn't give a certain answer. He says, the evidence shows us there are different paths and different possibilities. So maybe not always we need to wait to have high income to have a better quality of life. Well, before we progress, he gives 5 freedoms. Political freedoms, which I think is clear. Economic facilities, which means, being able to economically active, economic freedoms, economic abilities, like building a company or working for wage. Social opportunities, being participating in social life, playing sport, art activities, things like that. Transparency guarantees, which means be able to see what will happen in the future, in a reasonable degree. And protective security, being sure that we won't be I will talk more on the last one in the next part.